What's up, everybody? Welcome to the SQUANCH, Wisecrack's Rick and Morty podcast. My name is Jared, and I'm joined here by the Squanchers. Well, at least one of them. We got Alec. What's up, Alec?
Hey, sorry, I was not here last week. I was very ill.
Yeah, well, now Ryan is ill, so I don't know what's going around.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, today we're talking about Rick and Morty Season 4, Episode 2, The Old Man in the Seat. As always, we're going to go around and see what people thought of the episode. First impressions. Alec, what do you think about this episode?
I'm going between like an A plus and an A plus plus because
shit.
it was really, really good. And I watched it once. I was like, that was pretty good. And then I rewatched it. And I was like, that was really good.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this episode is maybe even one of my favorites. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I think that, you know, we always talk about how Rick and Morty humor is very cynical. And this episode is very cynical. But I think there is a kind of optimism in its cynical depiction of love that I really liked, and I kind of came away with feeling very positive about. And so I love this episode. It's also very funny, and season 4 is off to a fucking rockin' start.
So are you at an A plus, A plus plus, S tier?
I would say A plus, maybe A plus plus. And as far as S tier, I don't know. It only came out yesterday. I need to let it percolate before I can deem anything worthy of the S rank. But anyway, before we dive into the specifics of the episode, let's go into a recap. So, being a shy pooper, Rick goes off to his secret isolated planet used solely for going number 2, leaving Jerry and Morty with his intern Gluty, who convinces Jerry to help him develop an app, despite Rick's warning not to. Together, they create Love Finders, an app that precisely connects people with their soulmate. When Rick discovers that somebody else has used his special toilet, he gathers all the evidence and determines the bowel movement in question was once a sandwich, and the man who ordered said sandwich is the culprit. Seconds after Love Finders is launched, people, both married and single, immediately start pairing off with soulmates. Much to Beth's anger, Summer immediately matches with a burnout named Danny and runs off with him. So Morty demands Gluty take them to his mothership to shut the servers down. Once there, the leader of the Monogatrons say that they have mastered the science of committed relationships and are using the app to distract humanity as they steal all of Earth's water. Right after consummating her love with Danny, Summer matches with another person and runs off to be with him. Rick finds the culprit, a sad widower named Tony who claims to also be a shy pooper. Upon hearing this, Rick lets him off with a warning. But just as Rick is celebrating having the toilet planet all to himself, Tony comes back and says that as shy poopers, they're both just asking for permission to live. Rick, in a giant Rick robot suit, sits on Tony, sending him to a simulation of heaven where everybody poops wherever they want. But Rick breaks him out and warns him one last time. Tony responds by saying they're going to be good friends. Rick disagrees. Morty and Jerry get captured by the Monogatrons, and in an effort to escape, Jerry tells Gluty that, according to Love Finders, neither one of them have soulmates. Filled with loser empathy, Gluty lets them free and decides to kill the app. Rick tries to drop off some gifts for Tony, but discovers that he died skiing down Mount Space Everest. Meanwhile, Summer gets swept away by soulmate after soulmate until Beth swoops in to stop her by force. Luckily, Gluty incorporates a paywall on the app, which makes everybody delete it, thus thwarting the alien takeover of Earth's water supply and stopping Summer's string of hookups. After attending Tony's funeral, Rick sadly sits down on his toilet throne, where he becomes the victim of a toilet trap he initially set for Tony, a series of holograms that heckle him for being lonely and intolerable to be around. End of episode.
So I just want to clarify something because it wasn't immediately obvious. He gave him a bunch of fiber to make him shit, so then he'd run to the toilet and then get ridiculed while shitting. That was his plan,
yeah, that
right?
was unclear to me because it seemed like, is Rick going back on him saying he doesn't want to be friends with Tony? Because it seems like, when Tony dies, Rick goes to his father and gives him $8 billion and a robot that basically gives him a new son. So I was actually confused by that moment too. Is he trying to harm him or at least make him fall into a trap? Or is he actually trying to make an authentic connection, but, tragedy falls and the guy dies?
Right. It seems like there's this weird in between place, like all the people who are in the vats, where he doesn't want to harm them, but he like doesn't want to let them in his life.
Yeah.
Like it's like he's afraid to let the guy be his friend, but also wants to hide that by ridiculing him on the toilet. It's very confusing.
It is. So let's start talking about that then. I was going to start with the Love Finder app, but let's talk about the toilet and Tony. So this is a great arc. This is a great plot. Rick refusing to open up enough to find common ground with someone and start a friendship. It was really powerful. The ending of this episode, I think, reminded me and probably reminded a lot of people of the end of the episode where, at the end of the Unity episode, where Rick attempts suicide, and we just see him in his very, very low place. But I want to talk about what Tony says to Rick and what this says about freedom and control. So this is when Tony is found sitting on the pot and Rick is in his giant Rick robot. And Tony says, "After you left, I thought about what you said and how much I needed to hear it. But then I thought about why you said it and who you were saying it to. You need the same thing I need, Rick. You need someone to give you permission to live." And then Rick says, "I thought you were a shy pooper." And then Tony says, "You know what shy pooping is, Rick? It's a pointless bid for control. You want to take the part of your life that you truly think is yours, and you want to protect it from a universe that takes whatever it wants. It took my wife. It clearly took something from you. We can choose to live our lives fighting that, or we can choose to be free."
I was touched. This is
really
this is
touched
my
too.
life right here.
Yeah. So I thought that was really touching as well. And I want to ask, so after this, Tony goes to the heaven simulation. And in the heaven simulation, he and his wife and God are all pooping freely. Why do you think he rejects the simulation?
Oh, interesting. I don't he like knows it's too good to be true or something. I don't know.
Yeah. So I have two thoughts about this. One, is it that he's just so savvy that he can tell that it's not real, thus further connecting him with Rick and saying that, "Oh, Rick, this guy is in some ways on your level, and therefore it makes only more sense for them to be friends." On the other hand, I'm wondering if the guy rejected it because he realizes that's not what he meant by choosing to be free. And then the next question I want to ask is, what are we supposed to make of him dying by skiing down Mount Space Everest?
Sorry, I was thinking of the Space Hillbilly joke.
In the context of him saying that we can choose to live our lives trying to control chaos, trying to push everything away that doesn't allow us to feel control over our lives, or we can live freely. Is this him? I mean, obviously people talk about Mount Everest and talk about that's some big indicator of living freely. I quit my job, I go hike Mount Everest. It's just me and nature.
Yeah, so I think it's that the world is chaotic, scary. The universe is indifferent. It takes what it will. Takes what it will. And that for people who are kind of terrified of the randomness or chaos of the universe, they retreat to their toilet for safety and do a little tinker stinker as they check Twitter while they poop. But sorry, the pooping specifically, it's really on my level. But anyway, and so rather than retreating sort of not into himself, but like into the bathroom, he sort of embraces the randomness and chaos of the universe and, starts living life a quarter mile at a time. Shout out to Fast and Furious. And, lives life on the edge, not afraid. I was trying to think if this was Heidegger. I don't think it's Heidegger, but I'd like to say maybe it's Heidegger.
Well, I think another interesting contrast is his job. When Rick finds him, he is in a cubicle. He's at a job that seems like your average office job. And so I think that you could argue that that's another indicator of him trying to have control. A lot of times a lot of times when people are trying to exert control over their lives, they just want a job that has stability, that gives them a paycheck they can count on, and has something that they know will be needed long term, like accounting or something like that. And so, again, him leaving that to go scale Mount Everest is perhaps another contrast to that.
Sorry, Space Mount Everest.
Space Mount Everest.
Yeah, it's the safety there. And I think so. I actually this morning went back and rewatched an episode of Seinfeld because I thought there's some overlap thematically, or not over. This speech, I think, helps inform the character of George on Seinfeld. So I know you don't watch a ton of Seinfeld, but there's one episode where George literally quits a job because he was using his boss's private bathroom, and then the boss sent a memo to everyone being like, "You can't use my private bathroom. You have to use the regular bathroom with everyone else." And he storms in and he quits. But there's another episode where he gets hired for a job. They think he is handicapped, so he gets his own handicap bathroom, and then just like starts faking a handicap so he can have his own place to shit. And so like George is this
That's
kind
very
of like
reminiscent of a Curb Your Enthusiasm episode. But anyway.
Yeah. So it seems like Larry David has a lot of poop stuff going on. But I guess what I'm saying is like George is this like short, fat, bald, inept man who's not really good at anything. But like the one thing he can have is, you know, a toilet of his own.
Yeah. What do you think he says, you, like me, need someone to give you permission to live? What do you think that means?
Well, I think in context of the office job, because life is angst-ridden, you want to play it safe because things are scary. So you essentially need an external force to sort of break you out of that road.
So it's like live with a capital L. Like it's not just give you permission to be you, but give you permission to seize life by the balls, so to speak.
Yeah, to live your life a quarter mile at a time. I'm going to keep repeating that.
Yeah. Yeah, I quite liked, I don't know, I think that pooping time is something quite profound that not a lot of, other than Seinfeld apparently, a lot of entertainment touches on, and I think that this kind of bound it in a pretty kind of cool existential framework.
Yeah, it did. When I was in college, I went through insane measures to like find the bathroom that no one had been in that day. Like I would look at the conference schedule of like some of the auditoriums and be like, oh, there hasn't been a talk in there. That means that bathroom is clean and nobody's there. And then I'd walk across campus just to go there. I just thought I'd sprinkle that in there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that the drug is called Globofin, the thing that makes the whatever heaven simulation? Rick says it connects the whatever you want section to the whatever you have section of your brain. Do you think that what Tony realized is that he wants something different than he thought he wanted once he has it?
Yeah, it's the idea there that it constrains the possibilities. Here's what you have and here's what you want. So we're going to take of the things that you have, like what dream can we make here?
Oh, no,
and so the only thing he has in his life is a toilet.
Oh, I think it's just it realizes what you want. That's what I took out of it.
Oh, okay. I was with the what you have. I was thinking that, like his imagination is so shitty. The best thing he can imagine for is a nice place to poop. But sorry, what was the question again?
Well, my question is, does he realize? So after first of all, he escapes the simulation, and then he decides to scale Mount Space Everest. Does he realize that, wow, maybe I don't want what I thought I wanted?
Yeah, because I think he realizes the sadness that heaven is just a place where you can poop all the places you want. So he probably goes on like a big bender, you know, living like
maybe. Yeah, I mean, maybe it's that even in his fantasy heaven land with toilets and his wife and God who are all pooping freely, he realizes even then he's still not free. He's still trying to exert control over a chaotic universe. So
yeah, and then I think
he's one of my favorite small characters in the show.
Yeah, he's great. Although Gluty is also amazing.
Yeah. All right. So unless anything else you want to say about the toilet/Tony.
I'm just gonna be thinking. I want everyone to know I'm gonna be thinking about it for weeks, possibly months to come. This speech.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the app Love Finders.
2 R's and a Z.
2 R's and a Z. First of all, there was some language in there that threw some shade at Silicon Valley that I quite appreciated. Jerry says, rule number 1 in app development, son, never follow the rules. And then when Morty says, Rick told you not to do this, he says, yeah, well, he's a disruptive phobe.
Yeah.
And then after Beth sees Summer run off with Danny, people are getting divorced and immediately pairing back up again, and people are announcing that they're gay and going off to meet their soulmates, and Beth says, stupid phones are destroying us.
But then immediately calls Jerry, which I also really loved.
Yeah, exactly. So let's go. There's another interesting little monologue here. Let's go to what the leader of the Monogatrons say. He says, as a pre-app civilization, your love's value is defined by scarcity. You're highly trained to seek it and have no idea how to maintain it. Had you learned how to master love, you would have learned that it's abundant as water. You know, it isn't water, and then he goes on about his plan to steal Earth's water.
Yeah.
So, and then throughout the episode, we see, well, first of all, this whole subplot seems like a condemnation of dating apps in general, because the Love Finders doesn't seem to operate that differently than your average app. Because what Dan and Justin are saying, I think, is that these apps give you this unlimited buffet of choices, and love isn't about that. If you have all these choices, it makes finding love a kind of an interview process. But love is really much more about compromise. And that's why at the end of the episode, one of my favorite episodes in maybe any Rick and Morty episode is very small, goes very quickly. You have to watch it at least 2 times to kind of understand what this is indicating. But Beth looks to her phone, so she's hugging Jerry. They've been reunited. She looks at her phone and she sees that her soulmate is Ted Danson. But then she deletes the app, and then once she's deleted it, she feels very satisfied with Jerry. She has this little, she snuggles into him a little bit further and smiles. And this is what I was talking about earlier when I said that, it is a cynical thing to say that love is about compromise and love is about settling and love isn't about, there's one soulmate out of a million people, because as the episode points out, of course there aren't. There are probably thousands of viable mates for most people unless you're Jerry or Gluty. But and trying to find the right one is just going to drive anybody crazy. So love really is much more of a decision. It's not this kind of ecstatic, passionate investment. It's just a decision. It's work.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting was you don't realize love is abundant, but kind of, what Tinder does, or any of these apps, is that it allegedly makes love abundant, and that you can swipe through hundreds, if not thousands, of people. But I think maybe the scarcity is that we think there's only one right person for us, or anything like that, or just the insane amount of competition. What I thought was really interesting is that, they're monogatrons, as in monogamy. Their app makes people do a kind of serial monogamy that looks indistinguishable from promiscuity. And I was kind of reminded of in the Unity episode, doesn't Rick come in on either a parachute, or he's hang glides into the stadium?
Yeah, he hang glides.
Yeah, but also Summer crashes in the church. She parachutes in, but then inexplicably, Beth is also on a hang glider. And so I wonder if they were trying to say that monogamy as it currently exists in the status quo is more or less just having a giant orgy, because you just go from partner to partner to partner to partner. Which isn't to say that one is better than the other. I don't know. Good for anyone who wants to do either of those things.
Yeah.
But I thought that was interesting, and I liked how Beth was matched. Jerry's lying. He's like, oh yeah, I took the high ground there, but he didn't. He just had no matches where she could actually with Ted Danson, who's
right.
A boomer dream.
Yeah. Yeah, so more on the Monogatrons. I like that they're all really wimpy, because it's great for the Jerry and Morty adventure that they're able to kind of manhandle them pretty easily.
Do they have a weapon? No. Well, I don't have a weapon either.
Yeah. They're the perfect, the perfect villains for a Morty Jerry adventure. I just love how it's so clumsy the way that they get through the Monogatron space station in a way that's diametrically opposed to Rick's brand of high-tech sci-fi efficiency, which is put on brilliant display when he goes and fights in the robot civil war.
Yeah. Also, did you notice the robot said delivery on it, but he crossed out the Y and said deliverance, like deliver us from evil or something like that? Oh, yeah. So good. So good.
So many good details for sure. Yeah. I'd also love that it's the fact that Jerry is a loser that ultimately saves them, because he's able to commiserate with Gluty and say, look, man, I don't have any matches either, man. And then that lets them be free. And so we get to see Jerry's own unique brand of Jerry heroism. Yeah.
Do you think the character who shits on Rick's toilet, I feel like there's like a Jerry-ness there, and that like all Jerry would probably want is just a great toilet to shit on by himself, right?
I don't know. That guy seemed very wise to me.
Yeah.
And as the most intelligent man in the multiverse, it's kind of interesting to see him challenged by someone who just has this world weariness, this wisdom, this...
He's given up
to him. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, he's given up. He's been through a lot, and he's kind of like Dr. Wong in that he can see through Rick's problems and kind of take him down a peg.
Yeah, but it's interesting because Dr. Wong does so like assertively, whereas he like it's through his resignation, right? Like Rick likes to say that he's resigned to not giving a shit, but this guy is like, all right, you want to kill me? Let's just, let's do it right here, right now in the conference room 3.
Yeah, but that also gives him strength because he's like, I don't give a shit if you kill me. I'm going to tell you what's what. I'm going to tell you what I see in you and what your problem is.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Other fun stuff. Did you want to bring up anything else about the app? Or that
they're
subplot?
On the board with the other app names that they had. One of them was Meat Lovers, but MEET. And just a nice, such a good joke.
Yeah. Also, just a couple of funny moments. The bomb that turns the conference speaker into a butt that lets out an explosive fart and a middle finger shaped poop. That was pretty amazing. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah. That was a great little touch. I like that he's just like walking around with that as well.
And then I love the most roundabout joke ever calling Solo a turd was when at the beginning Rick says, I have a solo adventure to go on, and this one will not be directed by Ron Howard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really love some of the best things of these 2 episodes so far have just been the visual technology or combat moments. So there's Rick's scream when he finds out someone pooped in his toilet's funny, and then he goes to this one deer and he turns the antler and it opens a secret cave. Some of those just elaborate things that make you imagine how much work Rick put into setting up this poop planet are some of my favorite parts.
Yeah, I also really like in the robot insurrection, the way he kills everyone is very creative. Like, doesn't he grab a guy's tongue or something and throws him on like a passing plane and rips him in half?
Yeah, that was amazing. That was my favorite one of those. What did you think about the post? You saw the post credits thing?
Yeah, the kid from last episode is on the missing container. Also, the butter robot's in there.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. I was just talking about the fact that Jerry takes the Globofin and imagines himself being a water delivery man.
Yeah, that was really good. But man, I love Jerry.
Am I missing something? I don't really get it.
I think the happiest he'll ever be, like, he's not a bad man, right? He wants to help people. He wants to feel important. And hydrating people is maybe the greatest he feels like he can aspire to. So he's just like, if I could just make sure everyone's properly hydrated, simple, honest work, in the same way that we want to, build houses or something. I don't know. He just wants to deliver water. I really respect it. Jerry's my role model now.
He should do that. Because he still doesn't have a job, right?
What?
He still doesn't have a job, right?
Yeah, I thought you said I should do that. I was like, great, Jared, I quit right now. I'm going to go to the
No, he should do that. I think that Jerry could probably get that job.
Yeah.
One other thing about the Monogatron. So initially the Monogatron leader and his wife seem to have a perfect marriage, but at the end, and when their plan becomes thwarted, they bicker at each other like anyone else. Is there anything we're supposed to glean from this? Is it that love is probably not infinitely abundant as they said, or is it just putting a cap on a joke?
Yeah, it's hard to, I mean, besides them kind of comparing serial monogamy to promiscuity, like, I don't really see what they were trying to go for there. I
mean, obviously, at the end, we come to the conclusion that they have the same relationship problems that we have, even though they claim to have scientifically figured out intimacy down pat.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to make, they say love is abundant, but they're like, love is abundant to me makes it seem like you're polyamorous and you're just like, I have enough love for 5 different partners. Good for me. But instead the love is abundant, so it all goes into one person, and then all falls apart. Didn't quite make sense to me.
Yeah, I think it's probably just showing that love is something that no one can figure out.
Yeah, fair enough.
Not even these people with scientific formulas that can apparently address perfecting love. Anything else do you want to bring up before we go into the mailbag?
Let's see. Sorry, there's just another great line. When Rick is talking to the bug guy, he's like, I just want to find out who shit in my toilet, or it'll all be worth it when I find out who shit in my toilet. And the bug is like, is that code for something? Someone look that up if that's drug slang.
Yeah, the fly that owns a frog restaurant, and he's like the kingpin, and all of his henchmen are frogs around him that would traditionally eat the fly.
Yeah. And my last question is, and this is in the intro, and I don't know if you talked about this last week, there's a goose in the intro, and I was wondering if that was a horrible goose reference. It's a 2-headed goose, to be fair, and Rick has to like get a gun from the fridge because it's broken into the house and is allegedly causing havoc or trying to murder them.
What is Horrible Goose?
Like the Horrible Goose Game?
Oh, just Untitled Goose Game.
Sorry, Untitled Goose Game.
But I would guess not, just because the game's too recent, and I would imagine the intro was probably done a while ago.
Yeah. All right.
Maybe. I mean, I have not looked too closely at the new intro animatics.
Yeah. With that being said, how do people leave a voicemail, Jared?
Okay, so you can hit us up at 213-534-8807 or 21-ELF-HUT or ELF-GUT-07. We got one from Bud.
What's up, Wisecrack? This is Bud. Calling to talk about Rick and Morty. I don't know if you guys noticed, but in like season 1 and 3, when Rick does his little Rick and Morty Adventures 100 Years rant, both times Morty's lying on the ground and he's like drooling and muttering nonsense. But in this season 4 premiere, when they do the rant, Morty and Rick both do the rant together. And I feel like that might be the creator's way of saying, like, at this point, Morty's learned enough from Rick to be on, like, equal footing with him. Like, other stuff in that episode seemed to suggest it to me as well, like the scene where Morty kills a bunch of people with seemingly no remorse. So I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on that. Do you think Morty's going to be more of an equal with Rick this season? Let me know. Thanks for everything you guys make. Have a good one.
Thanks, Bud. I think that we see that Morty's no longer a victim. I don't think he's going to be dragged along as much. It's usually that he wants to go, and it seems like now more than in previous seasons, he knows what he's getting into. He knows the risks involved. There's that whole thing in the first episode about asking permission. He needs to get permission from Morty and maybe from Beth and Jerry. I'm not entirely clear on that, whether they need to go on adventures together. And then at the end of the first episode, in the post-credits sequence, Morty says, I don't care, you can torture me, whatever. I don't know the exact line. And then he goes into the portal, and Rick is like, all right, whatever. So I think that we're meant to believe that the progress has been that Morty may not be an equal in Rick, and that he obviously is not going to be able to wield science like Rick does. But he'll probably be able to stand up for himself more than he has in previous seasons.
I think people on Reddit have been saying he's becoming more Rick-like, and I don't necessarily know if that's true. But I think it is him sort of coming to his own, being more assertive. Obviously, Rick is assertive, and possibly providing more of a counterpoint. where, to your point, Jared, he knows what he's doing, he knows what he's getting into, he knows the risk, but hopefully, unlike Rick, he will maybe have more compassion, be less sad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. All right, this next one's from Christian about Coco.
Hey, Squanchers, this is Christian, and I kind of can't believe you didn't get the Coco reference. It was one of the funniest moments. Basically, when Morty was strutting down the hallway, it was basically like he was threatening to murder him, and he said, do you think he'll be strutting around? You should think he'd be strutting around then? Only if the events of the Pixar movie Coco were capable or something in this reality, would you be doing that? And that's basically due to the fact that in Coco, if you've seen it, great movie, the afterlife is a real thing, and that you can come back if you receive a blessing from your family. So it was kind of hilarious. I probably butchered that exact quote, but that's basically the gist.
Thank you, Christian. That was the line that I remembered vaguely, but I did not get a chance to write down. So Christian called in to clarify the joke.
Such a good joke.
It's pretty good. All right, we'll do one more. Let's do one from Michael.
What's up, Squanches? This is Michael from Seattle. I was just rewatching the first episode of season 4, Rick and Morty, Edge of to Morty, Rick Die, Rick Pete, and I noticed that in the scene where the very first Meeseeks, once they are out floating in space, the Meeseeks does not disappear, which leads me to believe that he did not complete his prime directive from Rick to kill fascist Morty. And even though it looks like he was not breathing, that he is indeed still alive and going to suffer a horrible, horrible fate of just floating in space for the rest of eternity. So, just a small Easter egg I noticed. Love what you all do. I listen to every podcast. Keep up the great work, and wubba-lubba-dub-dub. Peace.
That's
Thanks,
amazing.
Michael. That is an amazing thing to imagine. All right, let's go into the mailbag. You can hit us up with emails, questions, comments, interpretations, concerns, whatever. Squanch at wisecrack.co.
That is correct. The first one's an email from Lauren. Does the new revelation in season 4, episode 1, that Rick has clones of himself that he can transfer his consciousness to lessen the sadness of the episode where he attempted suicide? 400 more years of Squanch podcast. Thanks, Lauren.
The one thing that did make me think of is, you know how in one of the season 3 episodes, I think it's the one with the roller coaster, we see that Rick has like some fucking cyborg enhancements. Well, apparently that doesn't exist anymore because now he's, that body is dead. But in terms of the suicide thing, I don't know. To me, that actually makes it sadder. The fact that even if you wanted to kill yourself, you can't because you've put in all of these blocks to prevent it. I'm reminded of, and I talk about this moment a lot. Do you know what I'm about to talk about?
No.
It's the moment in Deadpool 2, the best part of the movie.
Oh, where he embraces the guy he's going to murder.
In Deadpool 2, spoilers, but this is like the first 5 minutes of the movie. Deadpool, his girlfriend is killed, and he throws the guy out the window who killed her, but he's still alive. And then he goes down and he hugs the guy. And for a second, you're like, why is he hugging him? And then he jumps in front of a bus. And you realize that, okay, Deadpool, because he just lost the woman he loved, he's trying to cling closely to death because he can't die. And he wants to experience that. And that's why he hugs the guy and clings as hard as he can to get as close to the death that this guy is about to experience. And that was the most emotionally profound moment of that entire franchise for me. And I think that thinking about Rick's suicide attempt in that lens makes it sad because he wants to die and perhaps can't.
I have kind of two thoughts. One is that even if you clone yourself, you're still killing yourself. Is it implying that transferring his consciousness into the new ones with the Phoenix Project?
Yeah, I think so. He maintains all the memories.
Right. I mean, there is an argument that that's still a different person. But even then, I don't know. I feel like if Rick wanted to actually kill himself, he would just turn that off maybe. Or
yeah, you'd
even more
imagine
fucked
he's
up.
in control.
Even more fucked up is that he knows he's constantly trying to kill himself, so creates all like this whole system around him when he's like in a better mood to like prevent him from doing that, which would be a whole nother level of fucked up, I think.
Yeah. Cool. All right, what's next?
Yeah, we got an email from Luke. Hey, Wisecrack, not to be too cliche, but screw it, long-time listener, first time writing in. Thanks, Luke. About halfway through the first episode of the new season, when Rick returns to his reality with Wasp Rick, he accuses his hologram of gaining sentience and trying to take over. Hologram Rick then replies, I think he forgot the quote, but he talks about, I'm not trying to gain sentience or something, right? And take your space.
Yeah, I don't remember the line either, but I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. Anyway, it's about hologram Rick saying he's not going to try to take over. I was surprised at this joke, as the Rick and Morty writers are usually pretty accurate with their sci-fi references, and this is contradictory to how Isaac Asimov felt about robots in his writing. He despised the Frankenstein complex stories of robots, which is why his robot stories all involve humans placing their own fear and insecurity onto the robots, but they rise up and attack humanity themselves. Andrew Martin from The Post-Ironic Man and R. Daniil Oliva from his robot series both are complex, tame characters, and the issues in these stories are primarily the faults of people. I assume that Harmon & Co. were basing this joke off of I, Robot movie, which, though uses Asimov's 3 laws and the names from the book, Dr. Halcan for one of the characters, is not an accurate representation of how the author would have presented robots. Just thought this was an interesting observation. Wanted to hear your thoughts on it. Keep on keeping on.
There's even an Asimov name drop in the episode. I don't know if he said that or that was just implied.
Dr. Callahan?
No. Somebody, I think it's even in that last scene, somebody says, this is some Isaac Asimov level bullshit or something.
Yeah. I thought this was a really cool email. I haven't read a ton of Asimov, but I'm trying to binge a bunch of sci-fi. That's I'm not going to say my New Year's resolution, but that's going to be some resolution I have. But yeah, it's cool to learn that everyone misunderstands a sort of pinnacle of sci-fi.
Yeah. Yeah, I similarly have not read, I don't know if I've read any Asimov. I haven't read iRobot, and my sci-fi is not very thorough. Anyway,
yeah.
What's next?
Email from Alex. Hey, Wisecrack, longtime Squancher here, who's as excited for a new episode of the Squanch as I was for the new season of Rick and Morty. That's awesome. In your first season 4 episode, I noticed that you didn't mention what happened to the judge of Morty's trial after she ran out of the courthouse. You got to see her fate on the scrolling text bar at the bottom of the screen in the second news anchor scene. It says there that she ends up committing suicide to be reunited with her husband. I don't have anything to say about this. Just wanted to hear your thoughts. Squanch later, Alex. What a fucking great joke.
Well, yeah, because Morty will do anything to, whether it's make people commit suicide, whatever it is, just to end up in that ending, the happy ending with Jessica, which would have ended up not being that happy anyway.
Yeah. Sorry for breezing through these emails. They just all provided interesting things that I want people to know about, and I don't really have a ton of things to say about them other than I want people to hear them. Anyway, the last one is from Michael. Hey, Wisecrack, love the podcast this week. Wanted to pick up on the discussion around the fait accompli joke because I think it goes a lot deeper than it being funny a bully used the phrase fait accompli, though admittedly that was the bit of the joke that was actually a joke. The death crystal essentially presents the user with a fait accompli. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Given their current trajectory, his arc in the current episode is to realize that a fait accompli is essentially unachievable. This is demonstrated early on by the bully, who presents Morty's demise as a fait accompli, but ultimately gets completely wiped out by factors outside of his control. Cheers, guys. Mike from London.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is it just...
From what I understand, a fait accompli, whatever, is just a turn of phrase to mean that something is so certain it may as well have already happened. And I guess the death crystal is a literal version of that, in that you can guide yourself toward that definitive ending.
Right. It's saying that something's literally fated, that there's no free will. And I guess the episode is shitting on that because not only is what Morty is allegedly fated to do bullshit because Jessica wants to be a hospice nurse who tells people that she loves them. But yeah, that you can't really control it. Yeah, I want to go back and look at that because that seems like a really cool joke.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. I think we're going to cut it off today. We'll be back next week with Season 4, Episode 3 of Rick and Morty. And Alec, where can we find you on the internet?
I'm on Twitter at @WisecrackAlec. I tweet dumb things all day, most days.
Cool. Also, check out our Medium publication, medium.com/wisecrack. We're doing articles every week. Check out our other podcasts. Alec is hosting a culture podcast called Culture Binge. We're still doing our movie podcast, Show Me the Meaning. Our last episode we did was on Parasite, which is an amazing movie, so definitely check that out if you haven't. And we're also doing South Park podcast. So South Park is on right now. It's about over halfway through season 23, and we're breaking down every episode. So it's called Respect Our Authority. Hope to see you guys there. And until next week, we'll see you guys later.
But also show everyone the beautiful dog.
Oh, the dog. This is Tiffany.
Thanks for everyone for leaving the comments. I am reading them. I see I Squanch, Alec, and Jared. Very sweet. I saw horrifying. Another one. Oh, someone said I'm amazing. That's really nice because the other person was calling me gay. It's fine. But yeah, see everyone next week.
See ya.